The night I first heard the whisper, the sky above Lake Waverly felt stretched too thin, like something enormous pressed against it from the other side. The air carried that strange hush I had felt only once before, when my father died in his sleep, and the world seemed to pause, listening for something I couldn't hear. I had just moved back to the town I swore I'd never return to. The reason, a house my grandmother's house left to me in her will. A place darkened by its own history, where windows always seemed to breathe and floorboards murmured beneath your feet. She'd never allowed anyone to stay in it overnight. And now, the keys belonged to me. The structure rose at the edge of Lake Waverly, like a stranded fossil toll, narrow and stubbornly reflective, as if the lake mirrored only its angles and none of its warmth. The porch steps bent downward, slanted by decades of storms. Every plank looked as if it remembered something. Inside, the scent of cedar and dust braided with something faintly metallic, a smell I couldn't place. The kind of smell that feels like a memory. That first evening, I unpacked only what I needed: a mattress, a lamp, my laptop, and a stubborn sense of calm. As the sun went down behind the lake, the fog gathered like pale fabric, folding itself around the foundation. The house didn't just creak, it listened. When I finally lay down, the silence felt too synchronized, as if each shadow waited for my lungs to rise before it dared to move. And then, as the lamp flickered once, a voice whispered my name. Not from the hallway, not from outside, but directly beside my bed. A breath against my ear. A hush shaped like a warning. Elias. I froze. My pulse hammered so loudly I was sure the walls could hear it. I turned slowly. No one. Just the dark, thick enough to feel. My grandmother had always said this house required respect. She never said it wanted something back. The next morning arrived bleached and heavy, like the sunlight struggled to enter the house. I moved through the rooms, scanning corners as though expecting someone to emerge. The whisper from last night clung to the back of my skull. I convinced myself it had been a dream. I unpacked boxes, cleared dust, and tried to breathe some modernity into the aging space. As I pried open a wooden cabinet in the upstairs hallway, the panel slipped loose, revealing not an empty compartment, but folded papers wedged behind the wall, old, yellowed, brittle around the edges. They formed a map, not a map of Lake Waverly, not even a map of the town. It was a rough blueprint of the house. Only, this blueprint was different. It showed corridors that didn't exist. Rooms that weren't part of the layout. A staircase leading underground. On the bottom corner, in my grandmother's angular handwriting, "Do not open the lake-facing door." It remembers. The lake-facing door. The one she'd padlocked when I was a child. The one we weren't allowed near. The one she said was not for us. A shiver threaded through me. That night, as I studied the blueprint again, the house grown slow, alive, almost resentful. The air shifted, colder on my right side, as if someone stood there. And again, the whisper unfurled behind me. "Elias, come back." My breath caught. Come back. To what? The lamp flickered twice. Shadows drifted unnaturally along the wall. Something in this house wasn't waiting for me to explore. It was leading me. Fog wrapped the house like a shawl that night, brushing the windows with pale fingers. I followed the blueprint through the hallway until I found myself standing in front of it. The lake-facing door, tall, ash gray, its padlock rusted into permanent scowl. The blueprint showed another door behind it, leading to a narrow staircase, spiraling underground. My rational brain insisted I walk away, but something in that whispering voice, soft, familiar, drew me closer. As I touched the padlock, the metal pulsed warm, as if it had been held recently. A faint ringing filled my ears, like distant humming. Then the whisper returned, slow, coaxing. "You've grown, Elias." My breath stalled. I stumbled back, flashlight shaking in my hand. The house exhaled a long, slow sigh through the vents. I tried to force myself away from the door, but as I walked down the hall, the floorboards groaned in a sequence behind me. Not random, steps, following. By the time I reached my room, I slammed the door shut, locked it, and leaned against it. My heart thrashed inside my ribs, trying to escape before the house took interest again. At 3:07 a.m., The handle turned once, slow, measured, and then, a whisper through the doors cracked. "You shouldn't have left me. I didn't sleep at all." Morning arrived reluctantly. The lake outside swirled with fog so thick it looked like the sky had spilled into it. I took my coffee to the dock, desperate for air, untouched by whispers. The water lay unnaturally still, as though holding its breath. That's when I saw her reflection first. Not in the lake, but in the window behind me. A woman, standing in the house's second-floor window, motionless, watching. I spun around. No one, just a curtain, swaying as though someone had stepped away moments before. I climbed the stairs, every step a negotiation between dread and curiosity. When I reached the room, my grandmother's old studyette was colder than the hallway. The air clung to my skin. Dust coated everything except one corner of the desk. There, a recent fingerprint. Small, delicate, not mine. A notebook lay open, though I hadn't touched it since moving in. On the page, fresh ink formed a sentence that hadn't been there before. "You left her alone too long." My throat tightened. "Her," I whispered into the empty room. "Who are you?" The answer flowed like breath over water. "I am what she hid from you." My grandmother had always been strange. Not in the whimsical way elderly people can be, but in the quiet, burdened way of someone who knew something she wished she didn't. She'd never spoken about the lake. Never spoken about the house's original owner, her own mother. Never spoken about the door she kept locked. But she had spoken one thing repeatedly. Some places don't lose their dead. They hold them. I always assumed it was superstition. Now it felt like a confession. I searched the house for more clues. Behind an old dresser, I found another hidden note taped to the wall. My grandmother's voice echoed from the handwriting. "If the whisper calls your name, leave the house before it remembers you. Remember me." As if the house itself recognized me. The whisper came again, this time from everywhere at once. "You were mine first." My knees weakened. This wasn't a haunting. This was a claim. By evening, my fear had fermented into determination. Whatever lived in this house wanted something, and I needed to know what. I returned to the lake-facing door with tools. The padlock, rigid for decades, snapped open far too easily, almost willingly. The door moaned open, stale air drifting out like the breath of something long buried. Behind it lay the staircase, narrow, spiral, descending into cold. My flashlight cut a thin path through the dark. The walls tightened around me, stone replacing wood. The deeper I went, the colder the air became, until my breath fogged in front of me. At the bottom sat a room that shouldn't exist. Round, windowless, and in the center, a single wooden chair facing a wall carved with symbols. But not just carved, scratched, violently, frantically, like someone trapped had clawed them into existence. Strands of long, black hair tangled around the chair legs. Then the whisper came not beside me this time, but directly behind my neck. "You found where you left me." I turned too slow. Cold fingers grazed my arm. A figure stood in the corner, her outline trembling like static. A woman, long hair, hollow eyes carved out of shadow. Her body flickered, like she wasn't fully here. And she whispered again, "Finish what you started." I stumbled backward, hitting the stone wall. My breath came in sharp cuts. "I don't know you," I whispered. But even as I said it, something inside me pulsed, recognition blooming where it shouldn't. A memory slammed into me like cold water. A boy, running through the upstairs hallway. A door closed behind him. A girl crying on the other side, his small hands locking it, her fists pounding, her voice screaming his name. Elias. My lungs seized. This wasn't me. I never lived here as a child. I had never seen that girl. But the memory felt real, grief-warm, and guilt-heavy. The shadowed woman drifted closer. Her voice trembled like glass. "You promised to come back. But the house took me. And you forgot." My vision blurred. Was this some echo of the house's past? A remnant trying to graft itself onto me? Or worse, was this a memory the house wanted me to have? The walls trembled as the woman stepped forward. Not violently, but in a subtle, rhythmic way, like breathing. The house felt awake, alive, watching. Shadows along the ceiling stretched longer, reaching toward her as if welcoming her back. The symbols carved on the wall loosened, shifting into new patterns as though reacting to her presence. "I waited for you in the dark," she whispered, "and now you must open the rest." "Open what?" I asked, my voice cracking. She pointed a trembling finger upward, the ceiling, toward the house above us. "The walls, remember me. Let them speak. Let them finish the story you abandoned." A thunderous crack sounded from upstairs, then another, and another. The house was splitting open, revealing what it had hidden. I sprinted up the staircase, lungs burning. When I reached the hallway, I froze. Every wall had changed. Photos I had never seen before now lined the corridor, Polaroids, black and whites, faded portraits, and in every picture, a pair of children stood side by side, a boy with my face, and the girl from the underground room. But the dates, from decades before I was born. My legs nearly gave out, the whisper wound around me like a tightening thread. "Now you remember. Now you come back." Lightning forked across the sky outside, illuminating the lake in a flash of silver. For the first time, I noticed its surface wasn't calm anymore. It churned, slow, deliberate circles, as if something beneath was stirring. I staggered onto the dock, the cold wind slicing across my skin. The lake pulled at the air, drawing it inward like a great inhalation. The woman's voice rose behind me. "This house was never just a house. It is an anchor, a keeper, a place that stores what the lake cannot drown." I turned toward her shadowy form trembling at the shoreline. "Who are you?" I demanded. Her voice broke as she answered. "Your sister, the one the lake tried to take, and the house caught instead." The words shredded the last of my certainty. I was never. But another memory tore through me. A storm, a dock, two children playing near the edge, a hand slipping, water swallowing a scream, the boy running for help, the adults searching the lake for hours, never finding a body, and the boy, the younger version of me, standing in this very doorway as the house took the girl's shadow into its walls. My vision blurred with salt and fear. The woman reached for me. "You forgot me." "But I never stopped calling you." Thunder roared overhead as the lake rose, waves slapping against the dock like fists. The house groaned from its bones, as if stretching awake after decades of slumber. The woman stepped toward me, her form flickering. "Free me, Elias. Let me leave this place. Open the final door." The blueprint flashed in my mind, the third hidden door, drawn beneath the foundation. A door I hadn't found. The house shuddered violently. Windows cracked, walls warped. Something deep within the foundation began to pulse, the rhythm syncing with my heartbeat. I knew where the final door was. I ran back inside, down the hallway, through the spiral staircase, into the underground room. The symbols on the wall peeled away, revealing a narrow passage behind them. The final door, was so old it looked fossilized, carved with one word, Elias. My shaking hand reached for the handle. Behind me, her whisper trembled, "Set me free." I pulled the door open. A blast of cold air erupted, carrying voices, hundreds, maybe thousands, whispering in layered waves. The air shimmered with memories, with faces pressed into the darkness like fingerprints on glass. In the center of that void, a small shape curled in the shadows. A child, the girl from the photographs. Not the ghost woman, not the whisper shadow, the real one. Frozen in the moment the lake took her. Her eyes opened, faint and hollow, and she whispered, "You came back." Behind me, the older shadow, my sister's trapped echo, began to unravel, dissolving into streaks of silver, drifting toward the childlike threads drawn home. The house groaned, the loudest sound it had ever made. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, both forms were gone. The void was empty, the air light, the house still. I walked back upstairs. The walls were bare, now no photos, no shifting shadows, no whispers. The air felt like ordinary air. The house had let her go. As dawn broke over Lake Waverly, I stepped onto the porch and looked at the calm water. A single ripple glided across the surface, as if someone beneath it had finally begun to swim upward. I whispered her name, the one the house had tried to make me forget. And for the first time, the lake didn't whisper back. The end.